Are we with Justin Pickens? Hey, you guys. Hi, Tania.
Y'all doing today?
We have Justin Pickens here with us today. He is an educational motivational speaker from Olathe, Kansas. Hi, Justin.
Hi, Wendy. Hi, Tania. It's great to be here on Think a Teacher podcast. And I'm coming from you live from not only Kansas, but from my garage where I can finally get some internet service. So we're going to make it work. We're lucky it's a
Yes,
cool day here. And when you think Kansas, just know that I'm in the metropolitan area of Kansas City. So it's not out west Kansas like most people would think.
it's like a typical suburb, so you're not in the sunflower fields that Tania is imagining.
Not quite. A lot of cul-de-sacs like you thought. A lot of cul-de-sacs, a lot of neighborhoods, but I wouldn't want to live anywhere else because I got my family here and I have three
Oh,
kids, all under 5, and a beautiful wife.
wow.
So wherever they're at is home.
Oh, that's
Happy late
wonderful.
Father's Day as well.
Yes, absolutely. Did you have a nice Father's Day?
Had a fantastic Father's Day. My wife booked a 30-minute massage, which was awesome, and then we went to my
Yay.
favorite Mediterranean restaurant which they give away free Father's Day meals. So it's not only my favorite restaurant, but they give away free meals on Father's Day. So it's a win-win-win.
That's
That's good.
amazing.
I
Awesome.
was a griller yesterday. I grilled some chicken, some wings and some stuff. I was like, I'll be the dad today. I'll get on the grill
You
grill.
honored your
With
Mozzie's dad and your dad. That was very
I,
nice. Awesome.
and so I was like, why not go ahead? Watch some movies and had a little campfire outside. So it was
Uh,
pretty,
that's what summer's all about, right?
yeah, having fun.
Mhm.
Yep.
No.
Now, Justin is a PE coach, PE teacher during the school year, and he also is definitely one of those motivating and inspiring educators who reminds educators of their purpose. And he's going to share some wonderful stories with us today. So, should we jump right into it?
Let's
Let's do
do
it.
it.
All right. Justin, we're going to start with our favorite question, which is who was one of your favorite teachers and what subject did he or she teach?
So you told me I could say this, but before we jump in, I always say I loved all my teachers. I feel like a lot of elementary teachers don't get enough respect because by the time you're a middle school senior, you've kind of forgotten about them because they're in
Mm,
the past. But I'll give a shout out to Miss Royce, who taught me the power of kindness, Miss Smith in second grade, who taught me how to spell words like Washington if I broke them into small chunks. Miss
love it.
Davidson in third grade got me all the way to 12 on my multiplication tables. Miss Heggie through the world's best tetherball tournament in fourth grade. And then fifth, sixth grade, Miss Buckingham, Miss Shaver, Miss Blecka,
Wow.
and then Miss Royce again, which is awesome, and Miss Hutchison. So I got to give a shout out to my elementary teachers because I am one now, and I
Love
know
that.
what it feels like for you just to be old news by the time they're out of there. They're like, who are you? Uh,
Yeah.
so, but I would say that the teacher I'm going to specifically shout out today is Miss Stansel, my high school math teacher. So that's the one
Okay.
of all the teachers, and I have, a Mount Rushmore litany of them that I will speak about when I go to schools and lead professional developments or convocations, back to school
Hmm.
kickoffs. But today we're going to go with Miss Stansel.
Miss Stansel. Awesome. And she was your seventh grade math teacher?
She was my high school math teacher, I
Oh, high
believe,
school.
for a couple years, maybe like freshman
Okay.
year and 10th grade. I think maybe even more. I'm not positive.
What high school were you going to at this time?
McDonald County High School in Southwest Missouri.
Okay. Wow. Shout out to Miss Stansel. Thank you for being a wonderful educator for Justin. Do you have any specific memories or moments that stand out about your time with that teacher?
Yeah, so part of my story is when I was growing up and on the come up, as the kids would say, I don't really
Mhm.
recollect any pedagogy, any learning criteria, really growing up in a household full of dysfunction. Both my parents dropped out in the 10th grade. Both my parents have been to prison. And high school, I actually spent some time in foster care. Just a lot of poverty, a lot of dysfunction where
Mm.
I was just trying to make great grades and get to college. And to be honest, I really didn't fall in love with learning until I became a teacher. It was more of just trying to survive and get to the next level. But I remember Miss Stansel the most because she was always extra intentional about having side conversations with me, checking in on me. She was my high school track coach.
Mm.
Her son was a couple grades lower than me, so she was always at the sporting events. And really, it was just the extra time that she put in to checking in with me, getting to know me. And then after graduation, she did quite a few things for me as well that makes her still a big part of my life.
Aw, sounds like she's a really special person. You
And
have
it's really
had, sorry,
some.
Tania.
I was trying to say he's had some, amazing teachers. How did you think this teacher like influence your personal or academic life?
She believed in me. And sometimes when you can't believe in yourself, you need somebody else to believe in you for yourself. So, an example would be, when I was my senior year and I was doing track and getting ready to go off to college, Miss Stansel always said, like, this is what path you're on. This is the path you're going to stay on, and we believe in you. And then I'll never forget, she actually took me and my best friend Chris out to dinner to celebrate our graduations. And at that dinner, it was with another math teacher was there as well, Miss Kane. She gave me a graduation gift, which was a Bible. And you might ask, well, why is
Mm.
she giving you a Bible? And it's because I actually signed a college scholarship to go play football at a small Christian university.
Oh,
And at the time, I had just went there for athletics and academics. And she was like, yeah, you're going to need this Bible when you get to that small Christian school because I didn't own one. And
sure.
I still have that Bible today, 20 years later. My 20-year reunion's coming up. So 20 years later, I still
Wow.
have that Bible. Miss Stansel came to my football games, which were 3.5 hours away. She came to my college graduation 3.5 hours away. And she also cooked the meal for my wedding rehearsal dinner, all from scratch.
Oh
So,
my goodness.
yeah, she's always, when I say extra mile, she has went above and beyond multiple times. But, to be honest, if, she was ever to listen to this, I think she gravitated towards me because I was one of those kids who helped themselves. So I had the,
Mm.
deck stacked against me in a lot of different ways. And Miss Stansel didn't come from a great childhood either. So she knew what it was like to not only be an athlete, but also as well be an overcomer.
Mm.
And that gravitating towards me, she just wanted to see me succeed. And it's really great to try to cheer on somebody who's putting the work in themselves, and you can just be that extra push and that nudge they need when they least expect it.
I
That's
love that perspective. Yeah.
amazing. So she wasn't there just for you, far as just being in school, but she was there like personally. She was there spiritually for you, like giving you a
Hmm.
Bible. That's like a big thing for her to do that and kind of go through the same thing that you may have went through. That means she has an understanding of, maybe this kid maybe needs that, when I didn't have that. So that's kind of special.
She wanted you to fit in, make sure you knew what you were there for.
I feel like
Ah,
when you're, getting the Bible handed to you, you're like, okay, what's this for? And then you kind of, grow and you start understanding the concept of it. And you're like, okay, I understand why this was given to me.
well, maybe
Yep.
you weren't really raised around family that
Yeah.
pursued, a religious background for you. Is that where you came from?
Yeah, my mom would sometimes send us to like vacation Bible schools or things along that nature. And for the listeners, I had a very dysfunctional childhood, to say the least. There were times where I lived just with my mom and my siblings in California while my dad was in the Missouri State Penitentiary twice. There were
Mm.
times where I lived just in Missouri with my brother and dad. But throughout it all, like I said, Miss Stansel had a son who was very similar to us in age. She coached a lot of the sports. She'll go down. I think she was actually inducted into the Hall of Fame of the high school for uh, coaching and teaching. She just
That's
would go
awesome.
above and beyond, but she was really real too. Like she would tell it like it is. She had an opinion. She wasn't afraid to express her opinion. And in this small rural town that I grew up in, I just can't tell you how many different Miss Stansels and teachers there were that were like Miss Stansel. And I always tell everybody that I might as well went to a private school with the amount of attention that
Mm,
I got from really people who were just walking the walk with the Lord and just living that out in their daily life. Now, with that being said, like I want to make sure everybody knows I wasn't pressured to follow a religion or a certain
hmm
belief. It was only after the age of 18 when I had already decided on the college I was going to that she really told me more about her faith and things like that. But she just lived it out every day. And
hmm
one of my greatest sayings is kids don't choose miserable role models.
I was
There's
just gonna
a
say
TED,
she's a role model.
yeah, there's a TED talk by Rita Pearson, who always,
Hmm
one of the most famous educational TED talks, and she says, kids don't learn from people they don't like, but
hmm
they also don't want to choose role models who aren't joyful.
It's
And
true.
Miss Stansel was joyful. She was always there. She was always a great mother to her kids. And those are things that I wanted to be more like when I started having a family. So
Hmm
whatever teacher is listening to this, just know that your impact is not only in the classroom, it's when your kids see you at sporting events, when they see you in the community, how you're interacting with your spouse, your kids, how you're treating other people. All that is being picked up on and all that's
hmm
leaving a legacy.
That's very true. A legacy. I love that.
Powerful message.
For sure. And Justin's has a powerful message on his website, which I've checked out a few times, and it sounds like you've got a lot of speaking engagements booked this summer, and you're going to continue to, inspire and motivate others through your own message and the, students that you're teaching, but also the adults that you're going to be speaking to, more of the teachers, right? Where are some places that you're
Absolutely.
going to be speaking this year?
So let's see. So I have a company called Breaking Cycles, Building Futures. Essentially, I was taught for 13 years, loved every second of it, but I had a moment where I thought,
Mm,
is this it? Is this what I'm supposed to be doing? Am I living up to my potential? And I left education. And for 2 years, I explored the financial advising sector. And then I also explored what it would be like to own a very popular Chick-fil-A or, sorry, fast food brand, which is a Chick-fil-A restaurant.
oh, cool.
And then I call that my prodigal journey. But along that line, I went from thinking, is this it? My last year of teaching to
Mm,
this is it. And I went back to teaching knowing that there's no better ripple effect. So that's what I do when I go into schools. I talk about breaking cycles, building futures, but really my tagline is I take teachers from is this it to this is
is
it.
it.
And I have a book coming out in November. It's going to be called The Lottery Ticket Teacher.
Awesome.
And it's going to be just the basis is the extra mile educator isn't always somebody with extra time. There's somebody with extra intentionality.
Mm,
So, yeah, when I go speak like this summer, I went to Texas, East Texas. I went to Chicago. I went to Oklahoma City. And then I just got back from Houston. And then in the August, I'll go to Southwest Missouri, Oklahoma again, Indiana, and then Kansas City. So, and then I'm still looking for more engagements if anybody needs a back to school
yeah.
speaker. But I'm in the classroom, so I can only handle so many engagements at
Sure.
once. Because it's, people don't realize that it's hard to sometimes get in a car and drive 5 hours, 6 hours, or get on a plane and be away from your family all day. But
Mm,
it's the most rewarding work when I get to go lead a back to school kickoff. And a lot of people will say, we want you to talk to our teachers and our students. And I love that because,
mm-hmm.
I'm here to break cycles and build futures at any age. And some
That's
of the
right.
cycles we need broken. in education is just teachers having self-doubt if this is their calling, having self-doubt
Mm,
if they're living up to their potential. And it's time to break that cycle of, am I doing what I'm supposed to be doing? And then with kids, they're young, they're moldable, their minds are still there, and they need
hmm.
people that they can see who have made it and made the right decisions, because it's a lot easier to never start something than it is to stop something. So yeah, growing around the country, I try
It's
to
amazing.
reach educators, because I know that if I can reach an educator, I can impact 1,000 students.
That's a great way to put that. Absolutely.
That's
And
amazing.
Tania
Yeah,
and I are kind of like trying to bring this out also, just so that we can impact educators in our own little way too. I think that, I'm definitely not a motivational speaker, but Tania and I see some patterns of, there needs to be a little bit more respect for teachers and some more praise. So that's kind of where we're striving for. And you're
yeah.
definitely one of those teachers that I can see would be very inspiring for other teachers because I've been through it also. This is my 32nd year, but I'm able to switch grades often because I have a K through 12 certification in special education. So, and I have taught all grade levels, but that is the nice thing about having that is that if I get a little burnt out in one grade area, then I'll switch to another one and keep going and sometimes switching schools. But I have also persevered and stayed in education for a long time. And, as many times as I doubt myself and the journey I've been on, the paychecks, I have all these kids that come back and say, hey, lady, I still remember you and thanks for what you did for me. And so it's kind of a fun experience to have because it is very impactful.
I was one of those kids who reached out, being a
Hmm.
kid who has grown up with having epilepsy. I got diagnosed with having epilepsy at a young age, and just having a hard time with things. People kind of put you in a category far as like, okay, this kid needs help and something's wrong with her. And I've always tried to be that kid to always beat those, like, to not, I'm more than just, a kid who's on medication, more than a kid who just gets help. Like, I'm smart.
Hmm.
Now I'm going to college for digital cinematography. So I've just always tried to beat those stereotypes of being in like the special needs category or going to get extra help, to where to outsiders it looked like, okay, something is wrong with her or something is going on. So I think that's an important thing for me too. And just me being a student, a lot of students just look at teachers as just teaching and not humans, and they don't have lives outside of school. And I've always just been the type to want to change that narrative.
Yeah, and
No,
it
that's
sounds.
great. And Tania, I think it's so great that you would reach out and ask your teacher, or not ask Wendy, but tell her, like, you made a huge difference in my life, because that's why we all get into this work.
Hmm.
Number one, you have to be great at teaching your content, because if you're not teaching your content, you're not doing your job. But everyone needs a champion. And,
Hmm.
I heard this the other day, seen, heard, and valued, but you add a fourth one, which is challenged. And
Hmm.
you can add a fifth one, which is champion. So it's seen, heard, valued. You got to champion kids and challenge them. And when you can do
Hmm.
that, you can literally create generational ripple effects, because the life my kids have is going to be dramatically different than what I had growing up. And hopefully they're going to continue to pass that to their kids. And that's that's the secret to this. And teaching is so hard.
Hmm.
Like, I tell people, just because I went back and I love it, it doesn't mean that I don't have bad days. Like, I have a day I can't believe I get paid, can't believe I get paid. And then I have a day where it's like, oh yeah, you better be paying me. And then I have another day where it's like, I don't get paid
Yes.
enough. And it kind of just cycles through. But the more I've worked in any industry, the more I've realized that's with any job. Like no job has
Mhm.
great days. And
Mhm.
I like the fact that Wendy said that she either switches grade levels or switches, uh, schools. Because I
Mhm.
told teachers, when you feel like you're in need of a change, you have two options. You can either replant or repurpose right where you're at, or it's time to go and grow. But that doesn't mean you have to leave
Mhm.
the field that's your calling. And
Mhm.
some people get their back against the wall where they're just like, oh, what can I do? And it's like, no, sometimes you literally just need to go to a different environment, grade level, school, and it kind of picks you back up. Or
It's
for
true.
me, what I needed more than anything before I left, I'll personally say this, I needed a pride check because I left a great school, a great subject area, and I left that because I got prideful. I wanted more status, I wanted more appreciation. And when I say, I say the word I a lot. I wanted more of this rather than doing what I got in education, which was to point it at other people. And
Mhm.
if I would have had a sit down talk about my pride, I probably would have realized I had it great right where I was at.
Yeah, that's a good perspective. I'm sure I've been in positions where it's been awesome schools, and maybe it was just my team or some people on my team that were just bringing me down and not allowing me to enjoy my job. Whereas, and sometimes it's the year with certain students or families that you're working with that really kind of draw your energy out. But for the most part, you just try to show up and put a smile on your face despite what you're doing and what is going on in your personal life behind the scenes. And you're a human being, but you are still a teacher, and you have to show up and try your best to be a role model, like you mentioned, because we are being watched all the time. And I think it it doesn't make us always feel like we're supported in our own lives, because we are watched all the time. But it is, I'm an actress when I go to work. I really feel like most of the time that's my job. Today I'm Miss so and so in a fifth grade classroom, and so it is interesting. And then I come home and I'm just me. And you forget about, like you said, over time, those kids forget about you when you're their elementary teacher. But that's not necessarily true, because my favorite teachers were like my first grade teacher and well, also my fifth and sixth grade teachers. But I did have some good high school teachers, but I used to think the same thing. So that's why I went to high school. I was like, wow, those kids aren't going to remember me. And, I do feel like some of them will come back one day and say, hey, lady, remember my times tables? When
Mhm.
like you said, you had a teacher who taught you your times tables. You remembered her. So I'm sure I'm out there, being remembered by someone for their times tables too.
You're remembered every day.
Ah,
Hmm.
thanks, Tania. Yeah, but it
And
seems weird when we're in our own little world and you're not being thanked every day. So I think that's why I think it's nice for us to do this, because I wish I could just have teachers' names going on a screen nonstop, because there's so many of us that really deserve that praise.
I feel
yeah, and
like
that's
school too. Like I never really seen like teachers get like awards like that, or a picture across the board. It's
I
like
think you get like one
here and there.
one out of the whole district, the Golden Apple Award or whatever it might be.
yeah,
So,
Yeah,
and
known
you
thing.
bring up a good point about like, when I was a teacher, I had one goal, and that was to win the Teacher of the Year award, like in America. Because
mm,
when I was in college, I won Kansas Teacher, Kansas Teacher of Promise, which is like the big award
awesome.
for your university. And then my first year teaching, I won Teacher of the Quarter, voted on by the students.
Awesome.
And then
Congratulations.
I won Teacher of the Year, voted on by my staff members in my building. But then a couple things started happening. Like I started to for I started to expect recognition, But here's the
Mm,
deal, you hit the head. Only one teacher can truly be recognized. And
mm-hmm,
sometimes when you feel like you deserve the recognition, you better watch yourself because you can actually become resentful to the people who's getting the recognition. And
mm,
I always tell people this, whenever somebody else is winning or getting recognition, check yourself on how you feel. Because if for whatever reason you don't feel like getting up and celebrating for that person and just going, woohoo, that's what I'm talking about. If you reflect and keep it inside and say, like, man, why didn't I get it? That's the pride check I'm kind of talking about because
yeah.
uh, there's a new organization called Educator Rising, and basically what they're trying to do is get young high schoolers interested in teaching, and they'll bring in the teachers of the year to like speak at a lot of their events, which is fantastic. But one of the things I like to do is go around and say, I'm just a teacher and I'm a regular teacher. I didn't win teacher of the year because only, less than 1% of teachers would ever even get close to it. But I'm
Mm-hmm,
just like you every day making a difference. And I don't need that recognition on a huge stage, even though it would be nice and desired. I don't need that to make me be a happy human. And
mm-hmm.
yeah, I don't know. When it comes to teachers awards, plus I learned that most of the teachers awards were essay contests. I don't know if you can verify that, Wendy, but you
Yes.
get elected or selected, and then you basically have to write a
Write the
essay about
essays.
how good of a
Mm-hmm.
teacher you are.
That's crazy.
Yeah. And so it becomes, yeah, like he said, a writing contest, and whoever had the best writing wins.
Um,
Well, you're number one in our book, Justin. You've come from a really difficult upbringing, and it sounds like you have a story that is certainly inspiring. And, a few of our guests have spoken about having difficult backgrounds and upbringings. And I think, that's when I think we teach from the heart, is because we are people who are heartfelt in our own ways. And I think when we want to make a difference, because we've also had, like you said, adults in our lives that have been there for us. And I've had champions, Tania's had champions, you've had champions, and we just want to continue to encourage teachers to continue being amazing and I know it's going above and beyond for your purpose or your why, but um, the why really is just like you said, generational change and helping others see that, well, if I can, just decide to be a nice person today, then someone else can decide to be a nice person tomorrow. Because I had a student just this past year, you know, um, she didn't always come into my room in a good mood. And one day I just let her know that she couldn't come in unless she had good manners when she walked in my room. And she's like, well, what's wrong with you today? And I'm like, nothing. I'm just not, I'm done tolerating, the disrespect. And so she got to hear my story about, one day I just thought, I'm just going to be a nice person because not everybody was always nice to me. And I knew how that felt. So since that day, she was nice to me every single day from the rest of the year. So I was like, maybe I impacted her just a tiny bit. So you just never know.
don't never, I think, like I've said to you, kind of inspired me to want to go towards the teaching angle. Like I'm such a big lover and helper, and I've always been around kids my whole life, coming from a big family, having 11 nieces and nephews. So I've always
That's a lot.
making a bottle, changing a diaper, and going from that to having my own son and my own family. It's taught me a lot from the teachers I've had, from
Mm,
Miss Curtis, from my second grade teacher, my
hmm.
high school teacher. These teachers, not along with parents and grandparents or whatever family members maybe getting taken care of by, but teachers really impact your life, and make you a better person and a better parent, a better friend. And that's something that also, teachers should get, supported and advocated for. And they should, have the appreciation, to have a moment or a picture or a letter to, say, hey, she has been working her butt off, or he's been working his butt off for years, being in their personal life too, because, it's many teachers who do that, who, go get them, a birthday cake, or have, our guests,
Mm-hmm.
one of our guests, through our teacher a party. So it's very important that, teachers get recognized for all the work that they do, not just inside of school, but they're teaching kids how to have manners, how to respect somebody, how to
Mm.
have a conversation without getting upset or not getting your way. So I think that's a very important thing that I love about teachers, period, or educators generally.
And Miss
Yep.
Stansel was a special one for you. How do you spell her name so I can write it down?
Stancell, Miss Stansel. Her name's Darby
Okay.
Stansel, and I think it's Darbi. So, and that's, cool that she's still teaching. She actually is like
Wow.
retired and then went to another district. So she's still out there impacting lives and still making a huge difference. And, I tell a lot of teachers, there's a lot of, you don't want your kids to get C's, but the C's are as follows. One is content. Your content creates com competence. Your competence will give a kid confidence. And then when you
Mm-hmm.
have consistency, you get to create core memories, even though if you don't get to decide when a core memory is made for a kid. And then the last one is caught rather than taught. Most of what a kid
Awesome.
remembers from you is caught rather than taught. And that's just in your subtle daily interactions with other human beings, with your kindness. And
Mm-hmm.
you can't always disguise that or put that, actress mask on all the time because kids can pick up on that and they
Mm.
pick up on genuineness. So, yeah, those were the C's I was talking about. Content
Look at that.
breeds competence, and then competence breeds confidence. And then more is caught than taught, and your consistency will build core memories, positive core memories, hopefully.
Oh, that's amazing. That's you have it all. Is it the five C's?
That one was six. I think I switched
Six?
up to six
Okay.
there.
I lost count. Wow.
That
That's
is
very cool. I always thought of like, education needs to have a strong triangle. Is kind of what I always said, you got your parents at the top because they're really the ones who are encouraging the child's education, and then the child has to be completely in and the teacher has to be in. And you get all three of those things. You have a nice solid um, ability to learn is how I always try to talk to the parents about it. But I love your C's, something I'm going to write down and I'm going to put that in my room because consistency is very important, especially with pretty much anything in life, any kind of pattern or relationship building,
yeah,
for sure. Mhm.
for sure.
Tania, do you have any more questions that you want to ask Mr. Pickens?
What life lessons do you think that you learned from any of your teachers that you still carry with you today as a father, as a, person in general?
Uh, Great question. The largest life lessons I learned were two things. Number one, small, consistent actions make a big difference. And they can make a big difference negatively or positively. If I make the small, consistent action every day to eat processed food and energy drinks, then
Mm,
I'm naturally going to see a difference in my waistline and how my body feels, etc. But small, consistent actions also show up in your character with what you do every day to choose to be the best version of yourself you can be. And then the other thing is my teachers simply taught me to just be intentional. The greatest blessing I've ever had was I grew up in the 90s, born in the 80s, but grew up in the 90s and early 2000s. And I got to see what it was like when adults weren't distracted. And
yeah.
I tell people, like, you don't need a consultant to come in and sell you some new software or sell you some new curriculum. You just need to be more intentional with what you have. And that's why the greatest factor in a child's education is going to be the classroom teacher. So that sounds super
Mhm.
simplistic, but at the end of the day, it's simply intentionality. And I'm intentional. There are times where if my phone is in the classroom, I'm not a great teacher. That's why I
Mm.
keep my phone in my car in the parking lot most of the time. So great question, Tania. But I would just say the main thing they taught me was to be intentional and be where your feet are every day.
Okay, that's
I
amazing.
totally agree. I definitely think being intentional is a key important part of teaching for sure and being effective because like I said earlier, a lot of teachers are there, from the heart. And I think that if you don't let that go and you don't find something that gets in the way of your heart and teaching everything, with care and making sure that the message is clear. I was always asking a lot of questions like, do you understand? Are you sure that you understand it this way? And they must think I'm, driving them crazy, but I want to make sure that when everybody walks out of my room before they leave, that everybody knows what's expected of them and they know what the lesson was about because um,
I
I
think as a kid,
think asking
sometimes
questions helps.
you kind of as a team that kind of sometimes goes out one ear and out the other sometimes with certain
Mm,
things. 'Cause I remember certain things you would say to me like, okay, why is she saying that? Or I'm not sure what that means. And I'll just be like, okay, whatever. And then you go through life and you're like, oh, I understand what she meant by
mm,
having manners, or understanding that everyone isn't perfect, or not having a good day. So that's something that
mm.
definitely sticks with you. And as you get older, you're like, okay, now I understand what that teacher meant. Or
Yeah, you
wasn't.
might not learn it right away, but you'll remember later on. Yeah,
Hmm.
it's very true. Well, what else about your teaching experience, Justin, has helped you, I would say, in life in general, just being, you're intentional, obviously, as a teacher, but also as a speaker now, and as a father and a husband in your own home and in your community. And just continuously doing, what else? Do you have any other businesses or things that you're running other than your speaking engagement at this time?
No, the main thing that can collectively my teachers taught me uh, were that if you're going to be good at anything, you have to be willing to fail at it. So, I'm in a new chapter in my life where I don't want to fail at being a parent. I don't want to fail at,
Mm,
being a husband. Don't want to fail at being a teacher, but I do want to take risks.
mm-hmm,
And jumping out and starting my own LLC for motivational speaking business was a risk. And with any risk, there's also rejection that comes along with that. And then part of my speaking umbrella is my book that's coming out. And I never
yay.
would have thought. And the hard part about writing a book that's actually real and authentic is there's stories in there where I'm nervous about people hearing them because
Mm-hmm,
I think it's good to tell the good, the bad, and the ugly. I want to tell
mm-hmm,
about what I've done right, but also what lessons I've learned. And some of those lessons I've learned are pretty fresh, where you can actually learn from something that's a bad example I've done. So
mm-hmm.
I'm excited for that. And then yeah, other than that, that's all I can fit in at this moment. Like
Yeah, I would
teaching,
imagine
speaking, and having 3 kids under 5 is all I can do. We'll
it's a
see what
lot.
happens. A pie in the sky goal that I would love to have, and I don't know what this looks like, but I'll put it out in the ethos, is I would love to have my own professional development company, and I would love to put on like teacher retreats, like overnight
Mm,
teacher retreats. I was just at a stress leaders retreat where it was superintendents staying at an overnight camp and just, talking out how to get better, but also kind of letting people know that this job's hard and just
mm-hmm,
leaning on each other. And I don't know if that looks like an overnight camp. I don't know if that looks like a conference and I build my own, conference. with 4 or 5 other presenters, and we just have a whole weekend. I don't know what any of that looks like, but that's the big pie in the sky goal that maybe in 5 or 10 years I would start.
It sounds like a great goal for you. Definitely. When I first started teaching back in the 90s, they had sent me to a few of those types of like at a retreat, and we had some of the most amazing motivational speakers, and it was very empowering. And I remember that when I moved to Michigan, they weren't this that was in South Florida when I taught in Boca Raton. And then when I went to Michigan, it was more just day, but I stayed overnight at Susan Kovalick's integrated thematic instruction, all full week long seminar. It was amazing, and it definitely transformed how I am as a teacher. So I am in full support of you doing, something like that. I really hope that works out for you.
That's am
Um,
that's like truly amazing. I've seen this TikTok. I can't really remember what's her name. But I think she's like a high school English teacher, and she's like, it's like quotes that she posts, like, just because I'm just a teacher doesn't mean that I may not be sad or depressed, or just because I'm a teacher doesn't mean that I don't have moments where I just don't want to teach anymore. And it's like, wow, teachers really do have mental problems behind teaching, and maybe go through things behind it. So it's important that we have these events for teachers to get messages about what they can do better to better their health, or what they can do better to better their mindset, or how to go about different things. Those things are needed in the education system and field and all of that, because it's not easy teaching kids or people, period.
Well, Tania, you don't necessarily know this, but at the beginning of every school year, all of us teachers do, we have to sit and watch hours and hours of videos on professional development of things like, mental health or um, just having good morals and ethics in the classroom. So there's so many things that we have to just check off at the beginning of the year. I don't know about you, Justin. Do you have to do the same thing? About fire safety, about medicine safety, about every kind of safety. And now we have all types of, threat safety, any type of going, where somebody comes in your building. So it can be kind of scary with the amount of trainings, but we have like 20 to 30 trainings that we have to do every year at the beginning of the
Health is
year.
just in training. Yeah, watching a video about mental health could be okay, but actually doing something like,
Yeah. That's
that,
why I like the whole retreat idea.
I really hope that comes to plan.
I know it'd be awesome for him. So you have brought a different light for us here today. We really enjoyed having you right around Father's Day because we know you're an awesome dad because we can see how well you are, as a coach and a PE teacher, but also people go to his website. It's justinpickens.com, right?
You bet.
And we also want to just celebrate the 4th of July because our wonderful country is going to turn 250 years old this year. And we have another birthday. Tania Hill's birthday is July 5th. So I want to wish Tania a happy birthday because I
Me too.
believe this will be aired really close to then. And just making sure that we give shout outs to everybody who gets them this week and enjoy, the celebrations that are happening for everybody. So anybody want to add anything to the end?
Hope you guys tune in and continue watching us. We're always have something different to talk about and someone interesting on here. So, guys, make sure you tune in, you send it to your family, your friends, everyone, and stay tuned in.
Coming up in July, we have Siddharth Madhavan, Grace Stern, Paula Kohler, and Jay Wamstead. And we are booked until October, everybody. So we're very excited that we have so many awesome speakers coming on and guests to share their stories. And Justin's was certainly one that I was looking forward to today because He's come from a place of darkness, but he's brought a lot of light, and we know that he will continue to shine his light on so many people in this world. So thank you, Justin, for being here with us.
Thank you.
Building, breaking cycles and building futures. We're going to name this episode, okay? Just for
Thank
you.
you. And I'll close with this. Remember, this is it.
This is it.
This is it.
This is it. Even Tania is going to go be a teacher one day.
I know where I'm gonna go. Once I get this degree done, I'm gonna go see venture off, and all of this is giving me great insight and a great thing to go into it maybe with. So I'm
Hmm.
very appreciative to have you as a guest and to hear some more good knowledge and things that I can maybe take with me. So I
For
appreciate that.
sure. Yeah, you're doing a lot for the world and Tania. We're inspiring her as well during this podcast. So, well, we look forward to airing your podcast soon. And if you could continue following us, Justin, we would love that. And we wish you only the best and the rest of your summer to be peaceful, relaxing before you have all your speaking engagements and going back to your beautiful family life in Kansas.
Yep. All right. Well, hey, I'm going to get back. I'm going to help my kids or help my wife with the kids. Wendy,
Yay.
Tania, it's been amazing. Have a great summer.
Thank you. You too. Class dismissed. Bye.